and in the process of trying them out, had any issues that needs to be resolved. But if in process of trying out some of these things, you you encounter some issues, you can quickly drop your messages on the WhatsApp chat, and if there's a classmate that can answer the questions properly, you can quickly drop your options. But if there is none, I will try to answer or clear on whatever is not really clear. Okay, so feel free to ask your questions whenever. I think that's the purpose of this program. So you have to make good use of it. Okay, so please confirm if you can see my screen before I continue.
I can see your screen, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So yesterday we we introduced a couple of HTML tags like the heading tags, which runs from H1 down to H6. And also, we talked about paragraphs, and we said those are the basic text tags for creating text in your websites, in your web applications, web pages. So the rest are just more of making, giving more meanings to those texts you have. And example of those tags are the strong tags, which makes it bold and lets your browser know that whatever has been made bold is an important set of text or sentence as long as it might be. And then for italics, we use EM to represent emphasis or emphasize. And then we also talked about the BR code, BR tag rather, that we use to break a paragraph into two because the browser doesn't see more than one white space. So using the BR tag, we can break a paragraph into two. And also the HRU, which is used for horizontal row. And then right after that, we went into seeing list tags. And we said there are basically two forms of lists in HTML. The first was unordered list, which is created using the UL tag. And then inside the UL tag, each list item is created using the LI tag. Okay. And then we went on to talk about the second type of list, which is the ordered list, OL for short. The only difference between each of them is that this is UL, while this is OL. Okay, and we also ran those codes on our browser to see it visually. Okay, so going on to our curriculum, I believe everyone has the curriculum and has gone through them to see what we'll be learning this coming weeks. In week two, which is where we are at now, it says introduction to HTML, deep dive into HTML, and building a website with multiple pages. Okay, so it so happens that our our textbook is in line with our curriculum because the next set of tags we'll be talking about are link tags. Okay, so in HTML, we have a particular tag that is used for linking different pages, different files, different sites. Okay, it's called a link tag. So this is the base. This is the whole purpose of HTML. Remember, we said HTML is a hypertext markup language, and we said it does more than just what a normal text does. It allows you link from different pages, link from files to files, from website to website. Okay, and so all of that meaning is basically in this tags we'll be learning now. It is a very important set of tags. It's a better set of tags we'll be learning now. Okay, so from our textbook, scrolling down, it's 77. Here you have a brief explanation of what links are. using the A tag, or as we call it, the anchor tag. Okay, so the anchor tag is the link tag, A for anchor. So users can click on anything between the opening A tag and the closing A tag. So I'll be using A tag and anchor tag interchangeably because they are one and the same thing. You specify which page you want to link to using the href attribute. So we talked about attributes yesterday. We said attributes are anything that appears immediately after your tag name. So you have, this is the opening tag from, as you can see, this this arrow here. This point down to this point is the opening tag of our list. Okay. All right. So inside here we have A to be the name of our tag. This is to signify that we're not writing a paragraph here. We are not writing a heading here. We are not trying to create a list item or an unordered list or ordered list, right? But rather, the name of this tag is the A or anchor tag because we want it to be able to link to different pages, link to different sites. So immediately after your name, you have your very important attribute, href. Okay. So what this href does is that it collects the sites to which you want to link to. Okay. So there are sites you see, maybe you go to a blog and you say click here uh, to view the blog, right? And you basically click on that text, it takes you to a different site or a different page. This is exactly what happens here. So in this href, you pass in either the sites you want to link to, or you pass in the file you want to link to. Okay. From this example, they have http column backslash backslash www.imdb.com. Okay. And that is for the opening tag. Then immediately after it, you have the content inside here, which is imdb. So this is what the client or the user of your site will be able to see and interact with. They won't see the remaining sites. It's IMDb to be seen. So that's the text to be seen. And then you have your closing tag here. Okay, so let's create that for us. So I would create a new file for this. So I'll come here and click on, I'll say, let's give it link.html. You can see how descriptive the name of my HTML files are. So anyone that just opens up this file and sees HTML and link.html would know that, okay, this site should have something to do with linking. Okay, so try to make sure your names are descriptive, not so long, but they should be a little bit descriptive. Um, I'll change the title to Learn Certify, and inside my body, like I said, your tags go inside your body. I'm going to have a heading tag, a H1 tag, or say link sites. Okay, then I'm going to have a paragraph after it. So I'm going to use the random text we used from yesterday, the lorem. So by typing LOREM, you see VS Code suggesting this to me. So I'll just click on it, generate some sets of random text. It doesn't, which doesn't mean anything. Okay, remember from what I said. And now I'm going to try to open this up in my browser by right clicking and taking copy path. Then I go to my browser. So let's come here and paste this. So immediately it opens up. So this is our page, this is our heading, and this is our paragraph. So now let's say, remember we have this to be the link, the list tag file, and this to be the index.html file. So let's say we want to be able to link from here. We want to have a text on this page that we want to click on it, it should take us to our list tab. Okay, so I'm quickly going to do that here. So we have this open and close, and inside I would say go to let's say list file. It is a long text, so let me just save this and go to my browser to see if I can actually see it here. So you can see this now, right? But watch that. Let me zoom in a little bit. Be convinced that you can see my screen properly. Okay, so this is the file go to. But watch that once I move my mouse on top of this, it is still showing me a kind of cursor that says this is a text. All right. So I'm supposed to have a pointer to let me understand that okay, if I click on this, something could happen. All right. Because that's what actionable tags do. Tags like buttons, tags like links. They should change. They shouldn't be just text. This is the cursor for normal text. Okay. So we'll go back to our code. This is to say that there are still some things missing. And remember, we talked about this very important attribute here, the href. So I'm going to add my href here, href. So inside, I want to pass in the place I want to link to. So if right now I put in http column // www.google.com, I'll just see this for example right now. This is not what we want to do at the end of the day. But this is just for example purpose. So going back to our site, let me quickly refresh. You can now see a little difference from what it used to be before. So before it was a black color, right? But right now it's blue. I don't know if it's purple or blue. I can see blue, and it is underlined. And once I move my mouse on top of it, you see it is no longer showing me the normal text cursor I see when I hover on the paragraph. It's now showing me a pointer, letting me know that I can click on this and something will happen. And very, it is not really noticeable. If you look by the bottom left here on my screen, when I hover on this text, you see a pop up there showing www.google.com. This is to show you that that's where clicking on this will take you to. So if I click on this, I should expect to be redirected to Google page. So I click on it now, and immediately you see my site loading up. And based on my network, it takes time, but it should be faster on whoever's network is fast. So now you can see Google opening up. This is how you link to a different site. Okay, so I'm going to go back because this is not what I want. I want to be able to link to this file or this page because it's on my machine. So now this is what you do when you want to link to a site. You put in the address to the site, right? But this is not what we want. What we want is we want to link to a particular file on our local machine, with our laptop or this folder. Okay, so we can write we can say we want to go to http um colon www.link.html. Sorry if I would correct this. We can't say this because this is not a part on server. It is not, there is no domain like this. Okay, so this would not work. So because this is on our local machine, we now have to introduce a term we call relative paths. So we need to pass in the path to this. And what is the path to it? So the path is relative because uh, it is they are all on the same line right now, on the same level. Okay, so since I am in link.html and I want to be able to link to list.html, please don't get it wrong. We are currently in link.html and we want to link to list.html. Okay, so what I would do is I would completely take this out. Okay, and then I would write link.html. As you can see, VS Code is already letting me know that yes, there is such a file on the same level with our link.html. Uh, sorry, list. I want to go to list.html. Okay, so let me do this. Now, this is what we have saying I want to link to this file. So going back to our browser, and let me quickly refresh. We still have this. There is no change in our UI. So now when I hover on it, down at the bottom, you would see a part there that says file column backslash C column slash users. So this is the path to your file on your machine. Okay, so we're just following this path to get to the file. So once I click on this, it immediately links. It's very fast and very quick. It links to our list file. Okay, let me close this up because we don't need this one. Okay, so on this file, we've been able to link to this place. But in our list.html, we don't have a link to go back to our link.html or to go to our index.html. Okay, but with this idea you've learned, I'm very sure you will be able to link back to our link.html. Okay, so remember, if you have any question, feel free to ask. Okay, so on our emails here in our list.html, if we want to be able to route back to our link.html, we need to have a link there. So for me not to waste time with writing so much code, I'm just going to copy this and paste this here. So as developers, we will be doing lots of copying and paste. There are times when it's not really ideal to do, but we'll be doing it for now just to save us some stress. So I'm going to change the text here. It should be go to link, not list anymore. And here, the file will no longer be list.html because I am inside list.html. I want to link to link.html. So I will change this to link.html and save this. So now if we go and refresh this page, we see this. And clicking on it takes us back to link.html file. So we can now go forth and back um, either of these pages that you want to. So this is how linking is done in HTML. It is very easy and to do. Very easy to do. The only difficulty would be getting the parts. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit complicated now because from our textbook, if you scroll down a little bit to directory structure, it talks about when you now start having folders and files inside folders. All right. So the parts will now be different. So to break it down to what I'm trying to explain, let's say inside our lens certified folder, I have a different folder. And now let's say I call this folder um, parents. So that's the name of the folder. Okay, I'm creating a folder here. And now I want to move index.html into this folder. And I say, so For those of you that didn't get it, what I'm doing now is I want to drag index.html. I'm pressing down on the left button, and then I am moving it around. So I'm moving it to the parent folder, and then I accept move. So immediately you see it shifts. So if I close parent, you don't see it anymore. So it means index.html is now inside parent folder. So it is no longer on the same level as your link.html and your list.html. It is now inside a folder called parents. Okay? But parents is on the same level as your link.html and list.html. Okay? Do you get this explanation, or do I have to come again? If one person can confirm, uh,
Please, sir, I would like you to come again, sir.
okay, I'll take this outside again. And this time, I'm going to explain from the normal directory we have. This is the normal file folder, right? And inside this length certified cohort folder, you have these four files inside, of which parent is a folder. It is not a file, it is a folder. Then index, link, and list are three different HTML files inside length certified. So what I want to do is I want to move index into parent by dragging and dropping. Okay, so if I drag it, you can see I can drag it around. If I drag it and drop in parent, it now moves into the parent folder. So which means it is no longer on the same level as link and list. Okay, so if you go into Learn Certified Cohort 2 folder, you see the parent folder, you see the link file, you see the list file. So now, if you go inside parent folder, you now see index file. So that is exactly what is going on here. As you can see, it has moved in, right? So index.html is now inside parent folder. It is no longer on this line. It is no longer on this level. So you can say index.html is now a child of parent folder. Okay? But list.html, link.html, and parent folder are siblings because they are all in the same folder. Is this clear now?
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, go on.
Sir, please, is it compulsory that we move that file to that parent folder? And if you don't move it, what can be the consequences of the outcome? Won't it work?
Okay. So it will work. What I am doing now is just trying to explain to you that sometimes you might have a file in a particular folder. You might not have it all in here, okay? But you want to be able to link to this file. Okay, so from list.html, the way you link to link.html will be different from the way you would link to this index.html because they're not on the same folder. They're not in the same folder. They're not in the same level. So that's the reason why I'm bringing in this scenario. So we can see how to link to files when they are not on the same folder.
Got that, sir. Thank you.
Okay, is that
Yes,
clear?
yes, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start from our link.html. So from link.html, I want to have a different link with which I can go to my index. So I'm just going to copy this again. Uh, okay, I'm just copying and pasting. So here I want to go to index file. This time, index file. That's what it's going to say. So now the value of this href I'll be putting will no longer be index.html. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to explain to you. That because index.html is no longer on the same folder, uh, we will not be accessing it using the same. Sorry, let me admit someone again. Okay, so because index.html is no longer on the same level with this, it is now inside parent. It means from link.html, for you to access index, you have to go inside the parent folder first before accessing index.html. So it means over here, what you have to do now is say parent. Okay, VS Code is already suggesting to you. So when you do parent, it means you're going into parent, then slash means go inside. And now you can now see index.html. So I write index.html. So this is now the relative part to getting index. Okay, so this is the folder that's holding index.html. And from link.html, I want to be able to go inside parent folder first, then access index.html. I'm sensing some confusion here. Is this understood? Is this understood, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes, I got it, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. So let me refresh my page. And now, beside go to file, you now have go to index file. So on clicking on this, it takes us to our index.html. And so on this part of your code of your browser, you can see the relative part. So this is the relative part of your file inside your local machine, which is your laptop that you're using to code. Okay. So now with this explanation, how can we route from index.html back to link? So now we are inside index.html, right? So if I have, let's say I have, or I create a link tag, and the purpose of this is that I want to be able to route back to link to my link file, right? So what would be my href? Because it will no longer be the same. I don't know if anyone can guess. You might not be able to guess the route properly, but you could have an idea because index.html is inside parent. Does anyone have an idea what we should do to solve this this problem? Any ideas? You don't have to be correct.
I'm sorry, sir. I don't get the question very well because the network is very bad here. I'm hardly
Okay,
hearing you. Yes, maybe you should come again.
okay. I'll come again with this one. Um, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. So what I'm saying is this. So this is our link.html file or our link.html page right now. And from here, we've been able to link from our link.html to our index because, and we said because we are here, we have to first go into the parent folder. Then in there, we can now access in, okay? And that is what this route does for us. So on clicking on this, we immediately route to our index.html. But now we are faced with a little challenge. We now want to be able to go back clicking on the text. Okay, so what would be a logical or a logical way to fix this problem? Because we're now inside our HTML index.html, which is inside a parent folder. Any ideas? Did you get the question?
Yes, I got the question, sir, but no ideas. I don't have the ideas.
Sorry, sir. Looking at what you said the other time, the reason why you put you place on their index HTML inside parent. So before we can access index HTML, we have to pass through the parent before
folder.
we get that.
Sorry,
Hello,
someone
sir.
is speaking.
So now looking at the one you just asked now. So if we are
Yes.
to, so I think we have to pass through link.html, since the link.html is not in the parent file. That is what my own opinion is.
I think you it's your answer. Can you come over again? In here, we want to be able to come here. Okay, to save our time. What we do is we have a folder. We have to come outside. So once we come outside, we can now have access to this one. Okay, and so the way the syntax we use for showing that we are going outside a particular folder is that we do this. We do dot dot 2 dots and slash. 2 dots and slash means you're coming outside whatever folder it is you're in. So once you come outside that folder, you now have this. You now have your link.html, list.html, and your parent folder. So what I want is the link.html. So I just choose link.html. So this is the syntax that explains to us that index.html, which is inside here, we are coming outside of this folder and getting access to link.html. So if we save this, let's quickly see if what we've done would work. If we now click on this file, it takes us back to link to prove that we've been able to link our link.html to our index.html. Okay, so I don't know if there's any question on this. So if there's any question, you can ask. But if you need further explanations, the textbook is here to guide you properly. As you can see, this is exactly what we just did now. Shows you the parent folders, their children, their grandchildren, and the rest of them. Okay, so this is it for linking different files, different pages. And as we start the okay, so over to the next tag we'll be learning is the image tag. The reason is because um, images have it has a way of bringing beauty to a site. It has a way of bringing beauty to a site, so you have to add images to your site. So we'll be learning how to add images, and from this site, which will be the first project we'll be working on, you can see the beauty that images bring to site. So this is an image, and down here you have this image, you have this image, you have this image. Okay, so let's see how to put images. So the reason is this: you can't use a paragraph tag to add an image to a site. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so we need a particular tag for adding images. And so coming down here, we would see that indeed there is a tag created for that very purpose, and that tag is the img tag. Okay, but this img tag is a self-closing tag, like we discussed last week. It is not an opening and closing tag. It is a self-closing tag. So let's see how it is. I will just write that here in one of our pages. So let's say in our index, yes, in our index.html file. So to put an image, I'm going to start by doing this and say IMG. I'm just going to use my VS Code shortcut to, okay, it isn't clear it up for me. to upload it myself. So this is it. All right. But now it needs sets of attributes to make it function properly. So it doesn't work like on its own, just like that. So we need to pass in two very important attributes. First is the source, and the next is the auth. Okay. So what is the source? So the source is the path to that image you want to add to your site. Uh, um, so I'm just going to randomly look for an image on my local storage, and then I'm going to grab that image. Let me see. I think this. So what I'm going to do now is I want to create a folder for my images. Okay. I don't. It's not professional to just add everything, your files, your images, your videos, your CSS files, all on the same place. It's good to have folders to let you know that this folder holds this set of files that have the same property. So I'll quickly create a folder, but I don't want it inside my parents. I want it outside here. So I'll click outside here and say new folder, and I'll give it a name of images. So right now, images is empty. So I'm going to drag this image from my local storage. I'm just going to drag it and drop inside the images folder. Okay, so VS Code helps you. VS Code is friendly. Um, sorry, can you mute your mic? Someone's mic seems to be on. Right. Okay. So I just dragged that image here, but this name I don't like the name. So for you to change the name, you can right click on it and choose rename. So now I'm going to say let's give this a name of let's just say screen.png. So for image, you have different extensions. You can have a PNG, you can have a JPG, you can have a JPEG, you can have an SVG extension. All of them are image files. Okay, so it's different from .html, which says this is a HTML file. So screen.html.png is now an image. So we now have an image in our file. Good. So for me to show this image, that is where I need my source attributes. So once I do src, so inside here, I have to write the path to this image. Okay. So now we are going to test our knowledge again of relative paths. Okay. Because we are inside index.html. Do not forget. So this is index.html. That's where we're writing this. And our index.html is inside our parent folder. So it means we want to be able to access this image that is inside our images folder. And like we said, it means you have to come outside parent folder first, then go into images, then inside images, we can now access screen.png. It would have been more easier if our image was in the same folder as this. All we just have to do is write the name there. But because it is not on the same folder, we have to use a relative route. So I said to come out of the folder, use dot slash. So this shows you all of the files outside that folder you have. And we want the images, right? So we go into images folder and we have the slash. So now we can now see that inside images folder, we have screen.png, which indeed is the image we want to be shown. So I'm going to select that and save my work. So now going to my browser, let's go to index file. Okay, so you can now see that your image is now shown here. It's a little too big right now, but do not worry. When we get to CSS, we can see how we can change the size of this. We can also do it with HTML. There are few tags you can use to change size. but it is more ideal to be done with CSS. So you can see that this is image. This is the image that is showing on our browser right now. So this is how we add images to our screen. But now, remember I said there are two important attributes. First is the source, which is used to which you can impute the part to the image you want to be shown. So next up, I'm trying to say is alternative text. So this is just for your browser to better understand what your image is about. Okay, so you can put in any text you want in here. So I would write a text, a diagram, sorry, a diagram for my tutorial. It can be shorter than this, it can be longer than this if you want, it doesn't matter. So with this, it doesn't add any difference. Okay, so two error with your image, right? So let's say from here we got maybe let's say we got the name of our image wrong or the parts wrong. So immediately it means our image will no longer be able to show here. So if I refresh my page now, you now see that this is now like a broken image that says a diagram for my tutorial. Okay, so this is what the browser sees. Okay, but so only when you have issues with your image, you can now see that text shown to you. Let's you know that there's supposed to be an image of this description here, but it seems like there's something wrong. So you can now go back, check for what is wrong. Okay, I'm missing an E in the name of my image. And then you refresh and it quickly comes back to the way it is. So this is how we add images. So this is how this image was added on this screen. And that's exactly that's exactly how the image here is also added. So this is adding an image on your mobile machine. You can also add an image using a link. All right. So if you host an image online, you can easily do that. So, like I said, there are attributes you can use to adjust. So let's go on to test it. So right now, it looks our image looks to be too big, and so our screen is over too much. Let me try to adjust the width of this image by giving it an attribute that says width, and now I'm going to give it 300. Okay, from uh, our textbook here says it just the number 600. So now giving it 300, I'll go over to my browser and let me refresh this. So immediately you see it shrinks the image to a width of 400. For now, the unit of measurement in web design reduce the width of our image to 400 pixels. So this is the size of 400 pixels. So how do we know? Let's go to our developers tool again to debug. So if you remember, you have to right click on any space and go to your inspect. So once the developer tool opens up, let's search for this image by opening up our body tag and then we move to this image, right? So once I hover on this image, you can see it highlighted here. So if you don't want to do it this way, um, if you don't want to do it this way by highlighting on this image tag, you can click on this icon. element you want and try to debug it. So now I'm moving it on the image. So when I move it up, you can see up that a dialog pops up, and over here it's saying 300 times 168.66. Okay, so 300 is the width of our image, then 168.66 is the height of our image. Okay, so this is how you debug. Okay, so sometimes um, you might be convinced to actually adjust the width and the height of an image. You might get it right sometimes, you might not get it right some other time. The reason is this. Let me try to adjust the height also of this image. So let me say I want it to have a height of 300. So because I've already told it to have a width of 300, and now I'm asking it to have an height of 300, it means it will have to shrink our image to fit these properties we are telling it to have. So if when I go back to my browser and refresh my page, you can now see our image shrink to a width and height of 300 by 300. Okay, and now our image doesn't look good anymore. It looks like it's been stretched, and it doesn't look good. It's not having its normal ratio. Okay, so this is not advisable. So most times you're advised to only tweak either just the width or just the height of your image. So just tweak one, the other one will adjust automatically to make sure your image still has the normal direct normal ratio it's supposed to have. Right now, I'm going to leave just the width property because I think it looks good this way. And so we have our image here of width 300. Is there any question? If you don't have any question, you can also confirm so I know you're following up.
No question, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a question. I think the question
All
has
right.
been answered before. Actually, I didn't put her to it. It's about this material that you are displaying. How do we have access to it?
Are you on the WhatsApp group?
Yes, I'm on the WhatsApp group.
Okay. I'll paste the link there again for you so you can get the textbook.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I may still need to
All right.
go over it myself.
Yes,
Because
you would have
although
to go
I'm
over it.
enjoying the class, but seems I'm not still matching up with certain these things which we are teaching. So I may need to still visit the
Okay.
materials to be able to get it properly.
Okay. Yes. So that's the purpose of this textbook. Because most of what you'll be doing here, you'll be listening, probably you'll be following along, and you might miss some steps. So the textbook is there for you to go through again and get a better understanding of it on your own spare time. So I think with this, you can do something like this with this image, with this few tags you've learned. There is no CSS needed in this. So that concludes for images. So that's how we add images. So as you can see right now, our site is not pretty in any way. It's very ugly. It is not organized. It's just white and black, and the text are just randomly everywhere in the screen. So that's because it's just HTML. All right. So it's when we begin to introduce CSS that we can start making them look pretty as it ought to be. Okay. So next up, I don't want to talk about tables first. I'll prefer we talk about forms first before going to tables. And so, if we quickly skip this. are more used than tables are. Okay, so we are going to talk about form, and this is the normal Google site. And you might argue that there's no form here, but for the fact that there's an input here that requires you to put in some query search, some query parameters or search parameters, it's a form automatically. Okay, so we'll be talking about specific form controls as they are different. So there is the one in which you use to write a text. There's the one in which you use to write a password. There's the one in which you use to write a text area. So a text area are mostly used for comments. It allows you to write large paragraphs or large text. And then we have radio, checkboxes, and drop down. So let's quickly dive into the first we'll be talking about. Okay, so form. So I'm going to create a new file for it's going to be in this same level here. So I'll right click and go to new file, and then I'll say form.html. Okay, so let's get our boilerplate quickly. We have this. So I'm going to give it a title in H1 that says, sorry, H1 that says form, anyway, sorry, form elements. And then let me just have a paragraph that says, I am going to create a form here. Okay, and now I'm just going to click on this, copy the path, so we can open it up on our browser. So you can either decide to create a link to go through there. It depends on you. But now I'm just going to copy and paste this. And let me zoom in so we can see. So this is all that shows up on our screen for now. So let's see how we can create the form. So to create a form, we need the form tag, which is very important. So this is very important because you can create a form without necessarily using the form tag, right? But now it is not correct semantically, and I say semantically means a better way to explain your site to the browser, right? So by just creating it, your browser will not be able to really understand your form properly. So it's advisable you create your forms inside this. So firstly, we would create our form tag. It's still inside the body tag, right? Between the opening and closing tag. I'll do this form and then I'll close it off. So now I have my opening and closing. Okay, so what next? So now I can now create the forms I want to. So let's create a typical form we would use for registering in somebody into your sites. Okay, so let's say you have an e-commerce site and you want to be able to get users to sign up on your site. So what you do is firstly you would need either their name. You can separate it as probably their first name, their last name, or you can just say their full name. So for now, I'm just going to say your full name, okay? So how do you create different input fields? It is done using the input tag. So we use this input tag. An input tag is a self-closing tag, just like our image. So this is an input tag. So let me save this first. I want us to follow it step by step so we see what each of these things, what changes each of the attributes we introduce would make. So going up here now, let me refresh our page. You can now see that we now have an input field where we can type in something. Okay, but this is not descriptive to our browser right now. It is not complete semantically. It is just there. The browser doesn't know what purpose it serves. So we have to show what kind of input we want. The reason is there are different inputs. So if you want an input for passwords, there is. If you want one for emails, there is one for it. If you want one for creating numbers, there is also. So how do you specify which input you want? You do that by using the type attribute. So by putting in type, you see a couple of options popping out. So these are the different types of inputs you can have. You can have a button, you can have a checkbox, you can have a color, a date time, and the rest of them. So for our name, for writing just a short piece of text, what we use is the text tag. So I'm going to select that as the text. And next, I'm going to give it more attributes by giving it a name. So this name is going to say, I want the full name of the person. Full name. Okay. So let's stop here for now. Let's save this. So let's go back to see that no change will be made on here. There will be no change here. Sorry. Okay. So there is no change here. It's still the same, right? For now, when I introduce in a button, so let me introduce in the button now. So the button tag is used to submit our form. So let me have a tag of submit. So this is what it will show. All right. So this is just to show that this is a button. So let me give it a type of probably submit. Okay, and let's refresh our page. So now we have a button that says submit. So let me just put in my name. I'll just say Google Felix. And now if I click on this submit, you don't see it. It's very fast. The page refreshes very quickly, right? It refreshes very quickly. But now, if I go up here, I can now see something added to this params. It says full name equals to Google plus Felix. Okay, so this is how we submit forms in there, and that's why it is important to pass in the name of the type. All right, so this is how you can submit a form. So with just this, we'll be able to create a form. But now, for someone to register on your page, they need more than just they need more than just the full name, right? They need to be able to put in their email. They need to be able to put in a password if you require a phone number as well. But for now, we'll just stick with email and password for now. So let's create one for email. So I'll continue using the same the same procedure. I'll create my input field first, and then the type should now no longer text. Okay, so now it's now be email. Okay, then I cannot give it a name of say email. Okay, that is done. So next up, I'm going to create another input, but this should be for password. So the type will now be password. And then I can give it the name. So the name can be anything you want. For these names I'm using for it is just more descriptive to them. Okay, so I have this now, which means going back to my screen and refreshing. So I now have this for name, I have this for email, and this for password. Okay, but this is not, people can come into your site and they just see these inputs lined up 3 here, and they don't know what each of them is for. So there has to be a text that explains what each of these input fields should be for. Okay, and sometimes you see it inside here written. Okay, it could be written inside here. You see, enter your name, enter your password. So what we use that for is we are going to introduce a different attribute that says placeholder. So the placeholder for our text, our full name will be enter your full name. So you can give anything you want. The placeholder, let me just copy this and paste it here. So here I'm going to change this to enter your email, and over here I'm going to change this to enter your password. Okay. So now going here, let me refresh. So we now see some plain text written inside your input field telling you that you have to enter your full name here, you have to enter your email here, and you have to enter your password here. So let me show this up. So I'm just going to select this and select this is the first one that comes to mind. So password, let me just put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So because the type is password, once you write in the text, it just hides it for you. So now once I submit, it submits my form quickly by refreshing my page, and then if you come to the top here, you you can see all the values you put in here. So is there any question on this before I continue? Because I'll modify this a little bit. Any questions? None? Okay.
I have a question,
I'll
sir.
be moving on.
I have a
All
question,
right,
sir.
go on.
There are
Yeah, I can
some
hear you.
tasks. There are some tasks whereby the place they write you enter your email, they will still write email or phone number. Do you
Sorry?
understand my question? So I
Come in.
was asking, how
No.
do we do that?
How do you do what?
If you want to log into Facebook account now, if you want to
Can you hear me?
log into, yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, okay.
I was asking if you want to log into Facebook account, it will say enter your
Yeah.
email or phone number. So I was asking, how do we add the two together?
Enter your email. Okay. So that is, it's still the same way. It's just that for that one there are some validations that has to be done on the back end to verify. So what it does is that you put in either your username or your email, and then it takes whatever value you have and it compares it to its database and looks for if there's a database or a user that has that email or username, and then it lets you log into your site. Okay, so that would be when you get to a deeper part of coding, or probably when you get to back end coding. But for now, all we can learn in web design is to show you how to make the front end UI so users can interact with it, users can put in their values. So I can just format this to say um, I can format this to say enter your name or email, right? But it doesn't make any difference. It just shows the text, but it doesn't really mean it's validating anything. Okay, so that's just it for now. So with time as you progress, we can talk about including backend code to our site to make it more functional. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay, sir. Thanks, sir.
Okay, okay. So now for to make this a little bit more complex, you can see that if now I put in my name and I skip my email and my password and I submit this, it still submits the file. Okay, so if you go up here now, you see that the full name is Google plus Felix. Then the email is just equal to, and the password is just equal to, meaning it's empty. So we can make this in such a way that it will only submit the form if every field is filled, if every field has a value. So how do we do that? We are going to introduce a new attribute called required. So we write required, and that's it. It doesn't need any value. It's just a key on its own. But if you want to, you can do required is equal to true, right? But the default is true, so there's no need doing that. So we just write required. I'm going to do that for all of them as well. Required, required. I'm going to save. So now, when I go to my site again and I refresh, okay, so I'm refreshing now. So let me just submit. Let me clear this plain stuff. Okay. So now let me submit this form. So once you click on submit, it doesn't submit anymore. But instead you get a pop-up saying, please fill out this field. All right. So this is what we consider as client-side validation. So it's trying to validate that the user is not trying to bypass the registration process. So you have to put in your details first. So let me just fill in this one first. So this one has been filled. So let me try to submit now. So on submitting, I now have to fill in this other one. It refuses to submit. So let me put in random text. Let me just say Felix Gogo. Okay. So immediately I do that, it is now referring to me that I have to include this. The reason is that this doesn't meet the standard of emails. So for email, you're supposed to have a certain line of text, after which you now have your @ symbol, then your domain may be G. So that is why it's giving me this pop-up. So let me make it meet our requirements by saying Felix at gmail.com. So now if I try to submit, it now passes this order to these two now pass the validation. It's now remaining this password. So I have to fill in the details by saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, any random text. And now when I submit, immediately it submits my form for me and I can see my values here. So with this, we can say we've been able to validate our forms, right? The form is now validated and nobody can just randomly submit a form without filling in details. But it is not safe. It is very risky to do validations just on the client side, which is the front end. Okay. Validations are more secure when they come from the back end because you can't have access to should I say alternate or counter a back-end code since you don't have access to the code. So what do I mean? We can easily change what is going on here by going to our developers tools. So if we right click and go to inspect, this opens up, right? And we open up body and go to form. So we now have this input, right? So this is exactly what we have in our VS Code. So now I can now come here and edit this attribute by removing it. I can do the same thing here by right clicking, edit attribute and removing it. I come here also, edit, and I remove it. So I've been able to remove required from all of these input fields. So now, without filling out this form, let me just take these ones out. So we're going to do it again because once you refresh, it comes back. So I'll take out, let me do this, I'll remove required. I'll do the same thing here. Required to be gone. I'll do the same thing here. It's gone. It is gone now. So now if I submit, it automatically submits my form without the validations that I was so sure I had done already on my client side. Okay, so this is why client side validation is not safe at all. So, in as much as you're doing this, always make sure you're working with a backend developer to make sure your code is safe, and it cannot be bypassed. All right, because front end codes can be bypassed automatically just by making some tweaks here. So people that don't know how to use this might not be able to make those changes. But people that do, like people like you now, I'm sure there might be times when you want to go to open up your phone now. You will try to check this out if it actually works. And if there is no back end validation for the code, you'll find out that you can easily bypass their login system to access their page. This is why client side is not really good. So any difficulties on this? Any questions? Feel free to ask. Okay. So now I want to introduce something else because most times in sites you would see a text above each of the inputs, and then it will tell you probably enter your name here. Then you can see the form field under it. But now I want to make a little change to this because on what I have, sorry, on what I have here, on what I have here, I have all of them placed side by side. Okay, this input field is placed side by side with this, placed by with this, with this. But in paragraph, it is not the same. So if I create another paragraph here, so just like these input fields are side by side, I would expect this one to be side by side. But once I go to my browser and I refresh my page, they are not side by side, right? Instead, this one is taking its own row, and this one is under it taking its own row. So what's the difference? So the difference is that in HTML, there are two types of elements. There are two types of elements. So we have the block elements and we have inline elements. What are block elements? So block elements are elements that take up the entire width of the screen. They do not just contain their content. So for paragraph, we can say paragraph is a block element because if I hover on paragraph, either here or here, you can see that it is taking the entire width of the screen. Okay, not minding that its content is just from here to here. It is taking the entire width of the screen, and that is why when I hover on it, you can see. Sorry, let me do this. You can see that it has a blue line all over the screen, the entire screen. All right. So it is a block element because it takes the entire screen. Likewise, heading tags. So whenever you move your mouse on something and you see it highlighting the entire screen, you should know that this element is a block. So now the second type of element is the inline element, which only contains just the width of its content. It doesn't go past its content. So example of that are your image tags, your link tags, your input tags, your button tags also. Okay. So going on, if I hover on this input, you can see the only thing that gets highlighted here is the input field itself that highlights as blue, showing that it really contains the width of its content. And so when some other inline elements comes along, it will be placed side by side with it because they don't take up the entire width of the screen. So this is the basic difference between a block element and an inline element. So do we get this, or there's some form of confusion here? If there is, you can ask the question as I continue. Okay. For now, I want to, before we introduce CSS, all right, what I want to do can be easily done with CSS. But does anybody want to ask a question? Okay, no. What I want to do now can be done easily with CSS. But because we are not talking about CSS now, we are mainly focused on the HTML. I'm going to look for some other alternative. So I'm going to introduce a container tag that is a block element by default. So it doesn't have any semantic meaning. We just use it to group things together, to hold things together in a block element. And that tag is called a div tag. So this is tag. So you can see it says the div element. It represents each children. It can be used with the class, lang, and the title attributes to mark up semantics common to a group of consecutive elements. Okay, so I just want to group it together. So, what I said, the div tag is a block element. So if I now move my input field, input tag into it, but because the div tag is a block element, which means the div tag contains the entire width of the screen, you would not find out that each of these elements, these inputs, would now be placed under each other because the div is containing the entire screen, right? So if I go back now and I refresh my page, you can now see them placed under each other. So it is not because the input fields are now blocked. No. Let's go to our developer store and see. So you can see your div tag. So hovering on this tag, you can see it highlights the entire width of the screen to show that that div now contains the entire screen. So every other thing that comes after it will be placed under it. Okay, so this is just an easy way for me to do this. And now I want to be able to have a paragraph here that says enter your full name, another one that says enter your email, another one that says enter your password. How do we do that? We can do that by introducing a new element that says label. Okay, I get it is a lot of tags, but with time we would all just get used to these tags as we use them. So all I do is say label. So inside label, I would now write what I want the client to see, and I say maybe enter full name. Okay, I'll do the same for the rest, but I will just copy and paste. Save us time. Control V, Control V. So this should be email. This should be password. And I'll save. So the label is an inline element as well. And so remember what I said about inline elements. So since this is an inline element and input is an inline element, they will both be placed side by side. They will not be placed one after another. All right. They will be placed side by side. So going on, I'll refresh this page. Okay, so refreshing it, you can now see your inter full name is here, and then your input field. So this is how you add labels. Okay. For now, the label should be should I say it should be wired in a way that when I click on it, it should automatically highlight this input for me. So it should be connected somewhat. But right now it is not connected to our input field. So we have to introduce in attributes that would connect it. So the attribute is that we give the label an attribute called for. If you come down here, you can read what it's about. It says for, so let's give it a name. So let's give it a name of full. Let's say full name. It's greater. So the value of your for attributes for your label should be the same for your ID value. So we're introducing a new attribute called ID. I'll give it full name. So ID is an attribute stored for identity. It's a unique identifier for a particular element. Okay, so once you give a particular ID to an element, you can't give it to any other element. You can't give it to any other paragraph, any other input, or whatever. It is unique to that specific element. So using the ID attribute, I'm giving it full name. So once the name, the value of ID of an input is the same as the label, before attribute for a label, these two labels, the label and the input, becomes linked automatically. And so if I go back to my page and I refresh, I am not clicking on the input. I would rather click on the label. So once I click on it, you can see it highlights my input field immediately for me, telling me it is now focused and ready for me to write. But these other ones are not. So I have to do the same thing for them here by saying for, so let me give this email and I'll give this an ID or email. I'll repeat the same thing here. Give this for or password, and I'll give this as well an ID of password. Good. So with this, if I click on this label, it highlights that. If I click on this, it highlights that. If I click on this, it highlights that. So our link, our form is now coming up to shape like most of the forms you see. So the only difference now is that the styling of the normal forms you see on Facebook, on social media apps, are more beautiful than this. Otherwise, it's the same syntax, HTML wise, that they use. I'm not going to introduce us. So if you have any question, feel free to ask. I'm now going to introduce us to our last set of input forms, input fields rather. So let me rather create a div tag again. For now, I want to ask a question for the user to put in their gender. So I can do it in different forms. I can either do it in a radio form or I can do it as a drop down. But first, I will introduce radio. So what are radios? Radios are input fields that allow you to choose just one option. So you can only choose one option. You can't choose all of them. Example is this that says please select your favorite genre. So once you click on charts, you can't unselect it or unselect it anymore. So once you click on pop, it will now remove this jazz, remove the focus from here down to pop. Likewise, if you choose rock, it do the same thing for it. So let's see how we do that. So let's say I ask the I want to ask a question, so I will use a paragraph to ask a question. Say, what is your gender? Right? So I can now create different input fields for 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 that by saying giving it a type of, let's give this a type of radio. So we want to create a radio, right? So we create a radio and let's give this a value of male. So I only create two, male and female. Female, sorry, so strongly. And I'll save this. So we are not done, but I want us to see this visually. So going on to my page, I will refresh. So you see the question, what is your gender? So we see two radios. This, so you see that I click on this, and I told you the way radios function is that when I click on the other one, it's automatically on highlights the other one and selects the one I just clicked on. But these two are not connected at this moment, and so if I click on this, you can see that the two of them are coming up. That's because they're not connected. So let's try to connect them up together. So to connect them, they both have to share the same name. So the name now is gender. All right, because that's the question we are asking for. So once I give this also a name of gender, so this name gender, this name gender, automatically these two are now fixed. So the browser now understands that whatever input field of radio has gender as its name should be connected. And so if I click on this, it highlights this one. If I click on this, it immediately highlights the one I've clicked on and lets the other one go. But not we're not done yet because this too it doesn't seem descriptive. Like I'm just seeing radios. I don't know which of them is male, which of them is female. And so this is a poor UI so far. It's a very poor UI for a user. You can't interact with it with speech. So to make this more interactive, I have to signify which is which. And I'll do that by introducing label again. So I'll say I have a label for male, okay, and I'll give it a 4, an attribute of 4 that says male. And it should be inside here. Oh, I could get this spelling correctly, okay? So immediately I'll give this an ID. Remember what you said? An ID and 4 connects the two of them together. So I'll do the same thing for this one by giving it a label of female. And the 4 should be female. So automatically, I'm going to make this ID say female. So I would save this and let's refresh our browser now. So once you refresh your browser, you can now see male and female. So now this now makes me understand that okay, this radio is for this is for this. So if I select male or I highlight on this or I click on this, right? I can also click on female, and because they are linked together, it automatically selects that one for me. Okay, so I'm having an issue with male, so it means I didn't connect this properly. So let's go back to see why it's not connected. So before here looks okay. Okay, the tag is not correct. So this is saying label. It should be labeled with L at the end. So now when I save this, so you can see the kind of mistake we made. Label is not a tag in HTML. For HTML, it's not telling you that you have any error, you have any issue. Because HTML is not a programming language, it's just a markup language. It's just that the browser will not understand your code at all. It won't understand your website. So now we can go on to test it again. And now if I click on male, it highlights that. Good. I click on female, it highlights that. So now I can now fill in my form completely. Let me give it a random password, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now when I submit, all of those fields are now here. So the gender is female, like I chose, the password is here, the email is here, the full name is here. Okay. So instead of using radio, I can decide to use a drop down as well. Okay, either ways, it should serve the same purpose. So based on what UI you want. So I'm going to create a drop down also, and I'll go on to creating a checkbox. So let's create a drop down. So for drop down, we no longer use inputs anymore. So let's see what we use. I want to repeat the same question. So I would use a paragraph. Or no, let me not choose. Let me say, what course do you want to register for? What course do you want to register for? So I want to have a drop down of different courses. So the tag for creating a drop down is a select tag. We call it select. Okay, so now I can give it a name of the course because it needs that to submit our form. So let's just give it an ID, of course, which is not really important. But now going in, let's just save this for now and see what we get by going to our browser and refresh. So once I refresh, you see this small box here showing that there is something here. There is a drop down here, but it doesn't have any value. Now let's start to put in values. So to put in values for your drop down, we use the option tab. If I write option, so here, so I can now have, let's say, we want front end, so that's the value, but I also want it to be shown here as well, so the user can see his option. So for now, let me just create two. I just want two, front end and back end. So I would make this back end. Now save. So now we go back to our page and refresh. We see front end by default. Okay. So if I click on this, you can now see the other option. So I can now choose back end or I choose front end, either way. But this is not a good UI because automatically you are suggesting to your user to really start for front end. But we should be able to allow them choose a value for themselves. We are able to allow them choose for themselves. So how do we do that? We can do that by creating an empty option. Okay, so we will leave the value to be empty. Then we'll say select cost. So this is the first. Okay, but we want to add in something that says disable. So a user cannot be able to use it. He cannot be able to select it. So let's go back to our code and we refresh. Okay, the disabled took it out. So let's take out disabled. Let's just leave the value there. Okay, so now we now have select cost, which is an empty value. So it means you have to click first here, then go and choose either front end or back end for a cost to complete this. So this is how drop downs are created. All right. So if there's any question on this, you can ask before we continue. So we'll clear them up before we continue. You can see the textbook has more details on this. So lastly, we will talk about checkboxes. So checkboxes are similar to they are similar to our radio. It's just that for checkboxes, you can select more than just one option. You can select as many options as you want, as many options as you're given. Okay, that's the difference between a checkbox and a radio. Otherwise, they look somewhat alike, look somewhat similar. So let's see how we can create that. So what can I use a checkbox for? So let's say we want to ask languages you would like to learn. So I'll create another div tag. See how we are using the div tag so often now because you would also use it so much for putting containers. So to create a text box, let me give you the question first. So my question is, what language would you like to learn? Okay, so let me create my options now. I would have one for input. I would have one input. So the type will now be a checkbox, right? And let's say the value is HTML. I'm just going to copy this and paste it again. This should be CSS and this should be JavaScript. Okay, so like usual, they are not connected. All right. So let's give them one name. Let's give it a name of language. So I'll copy this, Control C, and paste them here, and we save. So with this, our checkbox is now connected, but like I said, it will allow you to choose more than one option. So now we now have a question: what language would you like to learn? So you can choose this. You can unchoose it. All right, and you can choose as many as you want. So this is checkbox. While radio can only be select, you can only select one out of it. So the next thing to do is to put in labels to show that each of them have to show the user what each of them stands for. So I'm just going to copy this label, paste it here. For this, I would say HTML. Let me use a small page. So it has to match. It has to match this ID HTML, and then I'll do another one for CSS, and the ID should be CSS. And then we'd have another label for JavaScript. So let me just say JS for short. So the ID would be JS. Saving this, if you go back, it now explains properly. So this is, oh, okay. We didn't change the values, of course. So this should be HTML. This should be CSS. And this should be JavaScript. And say refresh again. So now we have this. So this is now descriptive. So filling in all of our forms, we can now say our form is ready. And remember, I didn't put required attributes for the radio select. So you can do that on your own to add to it. So now we can now submit our form, and it has all the values in here. It has all of the values in here. As you can see, for language, it has HTML and JavaScript. Okay, so this is how forms are created in HTML. Is there any question so far on this? You can unmute your mic and speak if there is any question on this. Okay, I will take this time for to mean you got it correctly. So lastly, for today, we would be talking about tables. Um, we'll be going on how we talk about how we make tables. So right now, you might not be able to make a table like this, like you see, because this has some adjustments to it, it has some stylings to it, right? But we can be able to get uh, a structure of it, printed out for us to see. So to begin, we'll be introducing us to a new tag for table. Okay, so I would be giving you so our next class will be next week. So we have enough time to go through them one after the other and go through the videos again to better get the hang of this. I know you might not be chance to um to work and the rest of them, but it would do you good if you can spare at least 30 to 45 minutes to go through them and try to work on them on your own. So I'll be introducing us to a new tag called the table. You just have to use the form for creating a form. You use table for creating a table tag. So, but first, let me create a table HTML by going here and saying table. index.html. Okay, you can see how I'm recreating these things so I can get used to them. So I'm going to have a H1 that says table element. And then let me have a paragraph that says I am going to create a table here. All right, I am good to go. So, like I said, we start with writing the table tag. So now your browser understands that whatever is inside between this opening and closing tag is probably a particular data in a column or a row. So now, but the table is divided into three important parts, right? It's divided into your heading, divided into your body, and then your footer. So some might have footers, some might not have footers. Most might not have footers. But every table has a body, and the body of this is this area. This is the body for this table, while this is the heading. This area is the heading, right? So since since HTML5 brought in syntax to better differentiate your table into these things. It doesn't really add anything visually to your site. It just makes your browser better understand your table properly in detail. That okay, the data or columns you'll be seeing here are all heading tables, heading columns, right? And so we divide them into three different parts by using T head comes first to signify that you want your table heads to be here. All right. Then after T head comes your T body, and after your T body come your T footer, T foot. All right. This is how it is. But for this we'll be working on, we do not require a footer. And so since we don't require it, I'm going to take it out and say, okay. So we'll be starting with the table head, right? This is this the table head. We have about 5 columns. I'm just going to do about 3 of them. So we have commodity, we have currency, we have last. So in HTML, the way columns are created, the way data are created is that it is done row by row. So what is the row? The row is this. We have this first row, then we have this second row. So we have to create them one after the other. So to create the first row, which is for your heading, you have the T arrow, which is a semantic has a semantic meaning of saying table row. Okay. So for the first row, you want to create all of the columns inside of it. So because um, each of these columns, each of these cells you want to create are for heading, we use a particular tag called TH for table heading, right? So I'll now put in the first one that says commodity. Commodity. So please take note. Um, so I have one TH. Why am I finding it difficult to spell so much today? Uh, so I have commodity. So now I need a second column of currency. So I'll go to my code and create another TH and say currency. So this will now be my first. So this T arrow is my first row. So inside my first row, this will be my first column, and this will be my second column, right? You can see my screen. You can also see my screen, right? so I'm not going over anything. Can you confirm if you can see my screen or if you can
Yes,
hear me?
yes.
Okay,
I can
okay,
see your screen. I can
Yes,
hear
I
you.
can see your screen.
all right. So for this first row, this TH is the first column, which is commodity. Currency is the second column. Okay, so we want to have this next column that says last. So all we have to do is create another TH, and inside I say last. Okay, so we are going to see what it looks like now on the browser. It's not going to look anything close to what you expect it to look, but you now know you have a table. So remember we created a new file, so we have to copy this part. Um, we copy, and then we have to paste it in here. Okay, so now this is what you have for your table. Okay, so why is it like this? So by default, the table with doesn't form with borders or lines to show that this is a table. It just shows the row and the column itself, the items in the column. But if you want a border, you can give it an attribute. You can give your table an attribute of border, and inside it you can put the width of the border you want. So let's put it at 1. Let's see if we get anything showing. Okay, so now we have a border out there showing that this is a table of commodity, currency, and last. So this is the first row. So for us to continue with this row, remember we no longer want to write them inside this table head. It is now inside the table body. We're now moving to the body section of our table. So the next row will now be written inside here, inside the body. So like I said, TH, T body, T foot did not add any physical change to your screen. It's just for your browser to understand properly your table that this row here is mainly for the table head. Okay, so now we want to create another row in our T body. So we use T arrow. So now, because you want to create a normal data in your row, you no longer use the TH because TH is for heading. So now you use the normal one called TD, which is for table data. So this is what you use continuously, except you want to create a heading. So let me just see what it says here. It says Hogs, Link, CM, June 11. That looks like a long line for me to write. So I'm just going to write um, EMEX as for my first data. So what it does is that this will now be on the same column as this first one, commodity. Remember, it's a row, right? So if I create another table data and I say Apex, this will now be under currency. Okay, so let me change this to something else. Currency should be a number. Let's just say 100.000.00. So this second one will now be under currency. And if I now create another table data, let me see a typical example against for last. Okay, 1.02. Okay, let me switch this. So for currency, I would use USD. Then for last, I will use 100.00. Saving this, I will now see a table of 2 rows and 3 columns. So refreshing, you now have commodity up and then this on the bottom. Okay. So the more rows you create, the more they keep stacking below each other on your table. So this is how easy it is to create a table in HTML. Okay, so the remaining thing here is that you have some styling added to it, some CSS basically added to it to make it look this beautiful. So, or the or otherwise it's still the same thing. The same table or same code that is used for making almost every table. So if you come down here are still more information on here to help you better understand the table. So sometimes you might have to tweak a table to fit a particular UI you want to fit something you want to get like this now. There are a couple of things that had to be done or omitted here to get this exactly. Okay. But now, going back to our table, this doesn't look nice. It's like there's no space between this. Okay. So we are going to see just before we run up, we're going to see an attribute that helps us with padding. Okay, I think I must have passed that. Okay, so we are going to see cell padding and cell spacing. Okay, so if you go to your table and you put in an attribute called cell padding, so let me see if I got the padding correctly. Okay, yeah, it's correct. Sorry, keep working on this. So let me give this padding value of so I'm expecting that I should have a padding in my cell that is of 10 pixels. So going to my browser and refreshing, you now see a sharp space placed in each of the cells. It affects this change for all the cells. Okay, so it now takes the biggest cell to be the cell size or cell width of every other row or every other cell under it. So there is now a space here. So that is what cell padding does. It gives a padding in your cells. So padding is like a space and an internal space. So the next one will be cell spacing. Spacing. So I'm going to give this a value of, let me not give it too much. I'm going to give it a value of 10 as well. So now going on to our browser and refreshing, you now see that now there is now like a space between each of the cells that is about 10 pixels wide. All right, so that's how you use cell spacing and cell padding to look maybe closely to whatever UI it is you hope to achieve, you hope to get. And hopefully when we get to CSS, we can see how we can um, better uh, make our table look good as we want it to look, make our forms look good as we want it to look. And so far, we are done um, with going through important tasks that has to be touched before we start working on this site. So this site we'll work on this site learning CSS. So it will help us see how we can build HTML structures to build a structure for your website, and then see how we can use CSS to make your site look amazing as you want it to look. So from next week, which would be styling.css, introduction to CSS, CSS properties, more on CSS, advanced CSS, and Flexbox. We hope to, I hope to be able to run through working on this site. It's it looks complicated now, but I assure you, once you understand the basics, the theory in all of this, making sites like this become very easy and very fun for you to do. So what we'll do is we will start off by creating our navigation. So the sites are divided into different sites. You first have the navigations, which is this place where you have your company logo, and then different navigations, and then you have the body of your site, which is where all of these beautiful things are placed. And after which you have your footer mostly on the bottom. but there is no footer in this project. All right, not to cause any alarm. It's fine. There are projects to do. You won't see footer. So, before next week, I would make available a file for you to download in order to get the necessary things we need while we proceed with working with CSS. So that would be all from my end for today. So I would like to welcome any questions. Anyone that has any questions, something you're not clear on, and you want to ask before we continue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
Okay.
wouldn't call it a question, sir. I would call it like a
Okay.
request. I don't know if you can drop your number, sir, for us. Yes, sir.
Okay. My number is actually on the WhatsApp group, but I'm going to drop it also here for my number is on the WhatsApp group, basically, so we can get it from there.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
the
okay.
WhatsApp.
Thanks.
I will be posting the the link to the curriculum documents and the textbook documents also again in like about 5 minutes time, so you can see the number and get it. So yeah, that's it. Is there any other concern, any other
Okay.
questions that we need to tell on? Okay, none. So I'm going to end our presentation, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to stop the recording. Sorry. Okay.